Hey guys, the next pattern we're going to look at is another behavioral pattern like the observer. It's called the mediator pattern, and the idea is to have a mediator, which is basically an interface for communicating with what are called colleagues, which are just mediated objects. And I think one of the best examples of this is a chat room. Now, this won't be a full project, but if you want to implement this along with something like socket.io, you could do that. But let's go ahead and just create a very basic example that kind of shows you how the mediator pattern is put together. So we're going to have two constructor functions, one for the user, one for the chat room. So let's say const user, set that to a function, and each user will have a name. So we want to set this dot name equal to name, and then we're also going to set this dot chat room, and we're going to initially set that to null. Okay, and then we'll also have a constructor function for the chat room. So we'll set that to function, and that's not going to take anything in. It's just going to have a property called users, which will be set to just an empty object to start with. All right, so this will be a list of users. So let's go to the user constructor first, and actually we're going to create a prototype here. So let's say user dot prototype. And by the way, if you guys want to use ES6 classes, that's fine. I think, in my opinion, you should get used to writing object-oriented code like this, because this is what is actually in the JavaScript. Classes are just sugar over this. Of course, you can write classes, but I would suggest when you're practicing, I would suggest doing it this way. But it's up to you. You guys can write this as a class if you want. So, and I've done a couple examples where you can see how to do that. I mean, it's pretty simple. You just create your constructor in your class, put your properties, and then each of these prototype methods will be an actual class method. So in here, let's do a send. Okay, we're going to have a send function. And we're going to have a receive function. And the idea is to be able to have users that can send messages to another single user or to broadcast to the entire chat room. All right, and again, the chat room is the mediator, and then the users are the colleagues of the chat room. So this send function will take in a message and a to, so it'll be whatever the message is, and then the user, okay, the to user, and this will actually call from the chat room. So we'll say this dot chat room dot send. Chat room will also have a send, and that will pass in the message, the to, this message, this, and then to. This is pertaining to the user. All right, so let's see. After that, we want to do the receive, and the receive is going to take in a message, and it's going to take in a from. Okay, and then all we want to do when it's received is console.log, and we'll put some backticks in here, and we're going to put the name. So we're going to say from.name to the current user, so this dot name, and then we want to put the message. All right, and that's it for the user. So now the chat room, we're going to go down and we're going to say return, and in here we're going to first have a register, because we need users to register with the chat room. Okay, the colleagues have to register with the mediator. So we'll have this as a function that will take in the actual user. Okay, and then we're going to set users, and then as a key we're going to use user.name. All right, so user.name, and we're going to set that to the user that's being passed in. and then we just want to set user.chatroom to this, okay, to the current chat room. And if we look in the user constructor, this .chatroom is null by default, but now we're setting it to the current chat room. Now the chat is also going to have a send. That's what we're doing right here. We're saying this.chatroom.send. So we have to add that under the register. And this takes in, as you can see here, message, this, which is actually going to be the from user, and then to, the to user. So right here we're going to say message, and from, and to. All right, now here's where we need to decide if the message is going to a certain user or if it's going to be broadcasted to the entire room. So we're going to check to see if there's a to value. So we'll say if to, and let's put an else here. So if to, that is a single user message. So we'll say to.receive, and we're going to pass in the message and then the from value. Else, then we're actually going to loop through all of the users and do the receive. So let's do a for in loop, and we'll just say this is a mass message. So we'll say for, and let's say for key in users, and then we're going to check, we're going to do an if statement here, excuse me, and we're going to say if users key, we want to make sure that it's not the user that's sending it. So if it's not equal to the from user, then we want to call users and key, and then do our receive. All right, and the receive will take in message and from, just like it did right here. All right, so that should do it. So that gives us our interface. Let's go ahead and save it. Now down here is where we're going to use our pattern here. So we're going to create a couple users. So let's say const Brad equals, and we'll say new user, and that takes in a name. We'll do a couple. Let's say Brad, we'll say Jeff, and let's say Sarah. Okay, so that'll create some users. Now we want to create the chat room, the mediator. So let's say chat room equals new. Did I do it? Just chat room like that. And then down here we want to register the users. So let's say chat room. I keep putting in uppercase R. Chat room.register. And we want to register Brad. And let's register Jeff. And we'll register Sarah. Okay, so now that everyone's registered, we should be able to send messages. So let's say Brad.send, and let's say hello Jeff. And then the second parameter is going to be the user I want to send to, which is Jeff. So let's go ahead and save that. We get Brad to Jeff, hello Jeff. So let's say that Sarah wants to send a message to Brad. Hello Brad, you are the best dev ever. That can't even spell his own name. So Sarah to Brad, hello Brad, you are the best dev ever. Now let's say that Jeff wants to send a message to the whole room. So he'll just say hello everyone and save, and you can see Jeff to Brad, hello everyone, Jeff to Sarah, hello everyone. He doesn't say it to himself, because up here we checked to see, we made sure that it wasn't the from user that was going to send the message. All right, or receive the message, I should say. Okay, so that I think is a pretty good example of the mediator pattern. Hopefully that made sense to you, and I will see you in the next video.